We've made it to episode 5 as we continue to casually saunter our way around the topic of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. As long as it's got Dragon Ball in it, it's all good. Right here, up on the lookout. Up on the Lookout is a Dragon Ball podcast that takes a laid-back perspective for the show, as well as adding some insights into some of our classic what-ifs and discussions, and of course, talking to some very interesting characters along the way from the community. And today's guest is pretty much one of the biggest contributors to some of our topics for videos. In fact, if you haven't heard of what is known as Kanzenshuu, you are missing out, and I mean a lot. He is part of the admin team and founder of the website, one of the co-founders even, that was once a Vegetto tribute page, understandably so, because Vegetto is pretty cool, and also has one of the longest running podcasts in the business. It's only bloomin' VegettoEX, aka Mike LaBrie. What's up, Mike?
Hello, Mr. Simpson. Oh, I am just beyond excited to be chatting with you. As we were saying before, it's been far too long. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
We are also, of course, joined by our classic sidekick, Haverock.
Hello, I'm the one guy on this podcast that doesn't voice Goku.
No, both Haverock and I really look up to Mike and his team for all of the research and stuff like that. And it's been really great to actually see Anime AJ joining your ranks. And incidentally, he actually only lives like 15 minutes away from me. So
that's
like,
so fun.
The first time we did meet each other was at like KamehamehaCon. So it was like we went all the way to Irving, Texas to meet when we could have just gone, I could have just driven down the road. We have lots to talk about, as well as just keeping things a little casual today. So if you are enjoying what you're hearing and have been for the last few weeks, do rate and review in your respective countries. I do get to see them now, so it's very much appreciated, and it does help spread the word of the podcast. So with that, let's get things started. All right, Mike, so welcome to The Lookout. I do hope your journey up here was very, very stressless. I do hope Corin or Whiskers the Wonder Cat, depending on which dub is your poison, wasn't too much of a bother.
No, I think it's okay. Whatever that rule was about not being allowed up here, they seem to have suspended that for me.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with Dende basically changing everything, so that means the Room of Spirit and Time has no consequence in it whatsoever.
Yeah, it's fine. I can fly up. I can go train. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't have like that problem with Vegeta randomly catching on fire like he did in Dragon Ball Z. An iconic shot, but you know, Vegeta's in there sure is a lack of fire right now. It's been really a long time since we've actually talked, but I have been always listening on my drives down to see my folks, Kanzenshuu, over the years. And something I really wanted to say, I really dug your episode about musical inspirations, like introducing me to the delights of YMO.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's some of my favorite topics is, we try to look for something on the outskirts of the series, of the fandom, of the franchise. How does it connect in there? What were some of those inspirations? What we love talking about, and that's not to take away from the in-universe discussions, but something I've always grown increasingly interested in as the years go on. Who are the people that made the franchise? What were they into? What were they inspired by? What were the reasons for them doing the things they did that brought about Dragon Ball, whether that's Toriyama, whether that's Torishima, whether that's Koyama, whether that's Yamamuro. Who are these people, first of all, and what makes that person who they are?
Ever since finding out that, with that connection to Behind the Mask and Eric Clapton's version, I just feel like that connection, you just realize, dang, the fact that that seminal album from 1979 is just like, that was made in 79? It feels like more like 1987 or something like that. It's like way ahead of its time.
You could put it out today, it would feel modern, and you listen to that, you're like, oh yeah, that's everything I've heard in the 30 years after that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'll gladly plug the episode that you guys were talking about, but you were definitely right, and actually really it does convey the optimism of Japan at the time. It was rising up after World War II. I really strongly urge you all to listen to Yellow Magic Orchestra. You can find it on Spotify and all these different places, and especially with Castalia, it definitely sounds like something from Final Fantasy IV or Final Fantasy VI. Like a Super Nintendo Final Fantasy game, that sounds like something you'd hear in that. Like the synth, perfect. You've now been cataloging Dragon Ball and its kind of history almost for 2 decades now. How does it feel to be looking back on that and just like seeing how far you've come, and is there still so much to do? I hear about the legendary Wikia that you're working on.
I'm old, I'm broken. That's how I feel right now. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you want to get into the history, but you mentioned it. Yeah, I started my website in January 1998. Started as a links page, and I expanded into, I had a little shrine to Vegetto. That was my favorite little corner of the website. Into VegettoEX's homepage, I wanted to do things like editorials and put up images. Editorials were like the podcast of the day, except they were written instead of spoken word. And the site just expanded into Kanzenshuu EX there. And then in 2012, we performed a little bit of fusion into Kanzenshuu. And I've been working at this the whole time. If it's related to Dragon Ball, we cover it. We have the standard episode guides, manga chapter guides. We have a lot of curated guides on the site there as well. The Gods and Cosmos guide is one of my most favorite recent ones. The Rumor Guide is a personal pet project, one of my babies that I've been working on for many years, where we really try to dispel some of the rumors out there with the franchise, video games, characters. I mean, the most popular question, did Toriyama forget lunch? Yes, he did. Well, no, actually he didn't, but later he did and thought he did and didn't. All that stuff in there. I love doing the in-depth research. We have an incredible catalog of archive material. I'm recording down here in my basement. I've converted this room here into, I like to call it Kanzenshuu East Coast headquarters. I have multiple bookshelves full of V-Jump issues, different versions of the Dragon Ball manga, Psycho Jump. These giant volumes are threatening to collapse and take me down with them at any moment now. I have bins of old Weekly Shonen Jump and Fresh Jump. We truly do have an archive here, and we really strive to do the fact checking, do the actual legwork. So when we say this is what's said here, we can say, yeah, this is absolutely what it said, and this is the page, and this is the release date for this magazine, and this is the context for its release. This is the historical context for what we're talking about, and I think that's incredibly important, because anyone can say Goku is a Saiyan, and yeah, okay, but why? What led up to that? What were the editorial decisions that led to that along the way? What were the slapdash decisions by Toriyama that led to that along the way? That's what we're invested in, the story behind the story.
Again, a lot of our discussions with Hav and I, we've definitely really relied on your content. This is something that we really want to touch upon, but in some greater detail. So let's get ourselves over to the mini topic. So like we were just talking about, the mini topic is basically something that was really part of the core of the channel, and that is to do with Kanzenshuu. Basically me typing in Google and going like, Toriyama, Kanzenshuu, is there a translation? And then initially back in the day when I was really starting out with all these discussions, going like, type. Oh, that's odd. Oh, Frieza based on land sharks from the domestic bubble in the early 1990s? Dang, okay, nice. I think it was this bit, the huge drop with the full color mangas back in 2014.
Yep.
Toriyama just going like, yeah, the androids, Lapis, Lazuli. What? They actually have names? What? 2014 was a really, really intense year for backstory. Like, we thought Battle of Gods was, like, intense. Like, so Beerus just going, oh yeah, didn't you know there are actually other universes? You're not the only one. Wait, what? Sorry, what? I'm sorry, wait, what? It blew open the door, and Beerus just, it's Beerus, he's quite casual because he likes destroying things. Then finding out about the identity of Goku's mother with Gine, that's just like, dang. Dragon Ball Minus was a bit divisive, but it certainly had its moments there. But, Mike, since you're our guest here, over the years, what's been like the bit of Dragon Ball trivia or information that you just made your eyes go like, wait, what?
feel like the thing that comes to mind, and I kind of want to talk about these interviews a little bit, is a lot of people don't necessarily know where they come from, what their purpose is. The thing that came to mind was Yamoshi, the original Super Saiyan of legend, which gave birth later to Super Saiyan God. I know a lot of people think Yamoshi was the original Super Saiyan God, but it's actually no, he was the first Super Saiyan, then went out, his spirit out in search of Super Saiyan God. So a lot of these interviews come in things like you mentioned. So the Dragon Ball manga got an entire re-release in Japan in color. They called it the full color comics. In the back of those, there are a lot of little Toriyama interviews, or there'd be recaps of information. Then he'd get, about 3 questions he'd be able to answer in there. There's also a magazine that Shueisha puts out in Japan. Right now it's bi-monthly, has been for a few years, called Psycho Jump. There was an interview in there, the 12 Boo Mysteries. Maybe I take back Yamoshi and I do that one instead, about the no, Boo has existed for all time. Actually, BBD didn't create him. I love the retconning of information there. These interviews, a lot of people think of them as like, well, who's the interviewer? And why don't they ask these more important questions? These interviews are not hard-hitting investigative journalism. These are all very, very purposeful and curated bits of what they want you to hear at that exact point in time. So you mentioned Gine earlier. It's really curious how we heard about Gine in Psycho Jump from Naho Oishi, who wrote Episode of Bardock, and Toriyama, right ahead of the release of Jocko the Galactic Patrolman, the collected edition, which is where Dragon Ball Minus was published, which is where Gine comes from. These are all promotional pieces. They're not really interviews. They're all meant to promote something coming down the line. Going back to Psycho Jump, there's a series of interviews about scouters, and they happen to mention that there's the traditional types, but there's also the visor types that go across. And at the time, it was like, okay, that's an interesting piece of information. Who really cares about that? Then we come to see in Resurrection F, was it Tagoma, that has that exact same kind of thing. And if you trace back when these things are said, they all seem to be either Shueisha saying, mention this because this is what we're releasing, or it's Toriyama is working on something at that point in time, and we don't know that he's doing that yet, and we're going to see it in a few months' time. And what I really like about the drop of Yamoshi is that we know that for whatever that movie in 2018 was going to be, they had a couple ideas. It wasn't that Toriyama said, I'm going to do a Broly movie. It was actually that the editorial staff came and said, here are these ideas. These are the ones we're thinking about doing. And I know myself and a lot of other people were convinced that movie was going to be Goku versus Yamoshi, or Yamoshi found him.
Especially after the first trailer dropped, you feel like, Goku just comes up and then just sees Yamoshi saying, well, you're cool, I want to fight you.
Son Goku, you are now the strongest Saiyan in this timeline. I wish to test my mettle and strength against your present-day power.
Yeah, see if you're truly worthy of Super Saiyan God.
Neat.
Well, and it turns out that wasn't what that was. However, I'm fairly convinced on the cutting room floor, one of those potential ideas was probably a Yamoshi film that we just didn't get because they decided, well, let's do Broly because of course we'll make our money on that. Like, that's the obvious decision to do. So that's what I like to talk about with these interviews, is that so we get Dr. Gero's son, his back history there. We get a little more back history on Tao Pai Pai and the Crane Hermit. Some of that actually got adapted into Kakarot, the most recent game. Then we got a Gebo name for Dr. Gero's son there. It was really weird playing that game because playing Kakarot was like reading the Kanzenshuu translations archive in a video game. It was super, super bizarre. Again, that's just what I like to talk about with these interviews. They're not hard-hitting investigative journalism. They are very, very purposeful in what they're telling you and when they're telling you stuff.
Also, we feel that Toriyama also is a troll.
Yes.
A lot of those interviews, I see that people, cite your, cite Kanzenshuu, Daizenshu, and the other sources and take his answers really seriously when there are instances of him obviously not being serious,
There's definitely that, and there's also, I think maybe we need to do a better job of this. People will quote things from 15 years ago as if it was said yesterday. And again, that's something we're really invested in, is giving you the historical context on things. So we're really deliberate in listing the publication, listing the release date on something like that. And if we're posting something that is old, we want to let you know that this is not something new. This is actually older, and here's where it comes from.
But I do love the fact that about with Toriyama, the fact is, though, he can look at Bardock, he can look at Broly, and he goes like, yeah, those guys did really, really well. I want to have a go at that. Like, I just love the fact, I envisage that with the Broly movie, Takao Koyama is basically crying himself to sleep at night. It's like, my boy Broly, what has happened? He's too much of a good boy. He's meant to be absolute strength. It's like, no, sorry, we get that in Jiren now, thank you very much. I do appreciate, and I do respect Takao Koyama basically channeling his 9-year-old boy and going like, I want to create a guy whose power was maximum. At least somebody was having fun with that. But I mean, a couple of my favorite bits of trivia. The first one I know definitely is finding out that Dragon Ball wasn't all that popular. Because obviously it had gone through a couple of iterations before, like The Adventures of Tongpu, Dragon Boy. Like, it'd gone through a couple of modifications before Toriyama was gonna be going through and go like, okay, let's try this thing. And I've actually been like going back through Dr. Slump, and I've been seeing a couple of my friends like Geekdom and stuff like that going through, and then just realizing Toriyama really likes to big up himself in Dr. Slump. Like, the only person more attractive than me is Toriyama and stuff like that. You feel like, okay, this is Toriyama in his 20s and he's having fun. That's great. But it's also really interesting him actually finally having to actually listen to his editors more, because with Dr. Slump, you feel like, okay, it's popular. It's around about the time of the early 80s. That kind of format is kind of really finding its niche, that slice of life motif. Like the time around when Rumiko Takahashi with Urusei Yatsura. Now seeing him going, okay, we're now going full shonen. So Toriyama's having to modify it. And what you get is Goku acting like a persona character in that he doesn't really have a personality other than being a carefree boy. And the story is built around the characters around them. So when I read that interview and all that information, that just opened my mind. I was thinking, really? There was a time where Dragon Ball wasn't an actual hit right from the start. And if it weren't for Krillin, then that's it. You just think it could have been done. It could have been done relatively quickly. And now that I actually saw the anime version of it, you feel like, yeah, okay, this does feel like a bit more of like an adventure anime. And yeah, it was really tricky to master, but they did pull it off. And that leads me into the second bit of trivia that is my favorite. It's people going into GT. Yeah, man, we want to recreate that Dragon Ball magic, that mystical adventure. That is going to be great. And then by the time they get to the third episode, it ain't working. We're missing a trick here. And so basically they then go about, okay, what made Dragon Ball Z popular? Okay, let's go with Baby. It could have died a death within like 13, 26 episodes. So those couple of things about that and how hard it was for GT to actually get it right. Yeah, that blew my mind, man.
But I think we both can agree that one of the best moments is something we call Earthworm Krill.
Yes.
When basically Toriyama admitted that, Krillin doesn't have a nose, he breathes through skin. And I don't know what I like the most, the sheer absurd of that, or people taking that super seriously.
That moment when you presented that initial brief to me, and then I looked at the everything, I'm thinking, that's either inspirational and makes a lot of sense, because at least it's based in biology in some way, but then you just think, hang on, Toriyama, are you just getting to basically, you're just rattling through the questions so you can go home? Or if it's done remotely, that they just stop bothering you? I think it's a little of both. I mean, if he actually thought it through, it's an inspired answer. But yeah, Earthworm Krill is now our thing.
He admits himself, and that's I think one of my favorite thing about reading about is how much more connected is the fan base to actual lore of the world than Toriyama himself. I feel that the older he is, the more he seems to care, and the more he seems to set it up before somebody else do it. Like, I had just the idea for this guy and this other guy, and I didn't thought what to do with them, and that's how they happened.
Haverock is completely right, because you feel like nowadays his answers are a little bit more measured. Like, they feel like, okay, he's actually going back and maybe wanting to tie up loose ends before he might probably retire, pass on the reins more to Torio Taro, who incidentally, in the manga, we do talk about the manga sometimes, Mike, and one thing we're absolutely loving right now, and spoilers by the way if you've been reading the manga, is that Moro is actually really pressing Goku's buttons in a way that the Saiyan doesn't like.
Would you agree with that, Mike? From editorial point of view, that he seems to be more... when he says something more to a point rather than, doing his usual jesting.
Well, I think what you'll notice is, we have a few of these translations up on the site, Kanzenshuu.com. What happened around 2008, 2009 was very critical for Toriyama. We know, obviously, Dragon Ball Evolution happened. What actually was also happening in Japan at the time was Bandai approached Shueisha and Toei. They wanted to do a new series, and they couldn't get Toriyama on board. He had no interest at the time. I know we're going to talk about Torishima. It was Torishima, Kazuhiko Torishima, who suggested, well, let's just mine the old content and we'll come up with Dragon Ball Kai. And what happened as time went on is all these other folks were starting to develop Dragon Ball at that point. You did have Bandai working on Dragon Ball Heroes, and you did have a completely separate staff. You had Tadayoshi Yamamuro doing the character designs for Battle of Gods. You had a completely separate scriptwriter, Yusuke Watanabe, writing Battle of Gods. And Toriyama got brought in and said, no, hold up. This is not Dragon Ball. And it kind of started there and following Dragon Ball Evolution, where he said they didn't really listen to me. And he really came back around on Dragon Ball. Again, he's done this a few times in history. For example, when the Kanzenban were coming out in Japan, the condensed down to 34 volumes, the higher paper quality, he reread the manga then for the first time, I think, since it ended, and did the new cover art. And so now again, 2009 era, Toriyama's coming to it. 2013 especially, 2012 into 2013 for Battle of Gods. And he's saying, look, I am the author. This is my series. What I say goes now. And I'll take your ideas, but it's going to have the Toriyama craft on it instead of what everyone else is doing. And so, yeah, when he's asked about in-universe things, we do get the silly answers, but I think we also get a more focused Toriyama, a Toriyama who really feels some respect for his own work and some love for his own work in there.
That's a really good answer, Mike. So yeah, thanks for that.
See, that's the one good thing that came from Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah, that is one thing that basically, that sheer defiance after being ignored, because you feel like when the writer of the screenplay basically apologizes for how bad it was, something was bad immediately. I think this is a really good way to kind of round up the mini topic. So now we're going to be going to something like delving back into the history books for those of you who may not necessarily know the time when Dragon Ball may not have just been as abundant, as it were. So let's head over to the main topic. Our maxi topic today concerns Dragon Ball debuts in our respective countries, because in a very interesting and not surprisingly rare situation, we're all from different territories. This is, no means to try and make you feel like, any older, because I do feel that way sometimes with all these whippersnappers. You get your AJs and your Trevs that are in their early 20s and you feel like, oh, you pesky kids, It shocks people when I tell them I'm like 33.
Oh, you're so young and adorable.
Don't worry. That's absolutely fine. Because I get that from my wife. I get that from her. She's like, you're nearly 34 this year. You're old. And I'm like, shut up. So don't worry, I hear you, man. But I think I'll start this thing off since in the UK, we basically got Dragon Ball on Cartoon Network in the year 2000. I mean, I think there were attempts to bring Dragon Ball into the UK, but they weren't really that pronounced. And it was pretty much, in keeping when Funimation took over the reins and did everything in-house, basically bringing in the Schemmels, the Sabbats and stuff like that. And you had some really interesting adverts for it that really tried to allude that Dragon Ball Z was nothing like you'd ever seen before, because I'd only started to, at the age of 13, understand what anime was and be googly-eyed in front of Sailor Moon when that came out on Fox Kids in like 1998. So it was just like, whoa. Like, and not gonna lie, having a crush on Jupiter when I was like 12. I'm like, yeah, okay. Everybody I knew had a crush on Sailor Jupiter. Like, seriously. No question there. Now, Dragon Ball Z in the UK came out about 2000. It was, sure enough, their advertising campaign did work. It was nothing like I'd seen before. It was just this weird thing of like having the Pioneer dub, like the original Blue Ocean, and having this cast, and then it suddenly changes. Because our wait between episode 53 and 54, we had maybe waiting about like a few months, nowhere near as much as you guys in America would have had to wait. We'll get to that in a second, Mike, but we had to wait a little bit, but nowhere near as long. But just hearing the difference, it was just very jarring. And then I think we got to that weird place that by the time you get to the Boo Saga, it kind of goes in between the Ocean dub and the Funimation dub every 20 episodes or so. So, like, sometimes you would get, oh, yes, you get the Chris Sabat Vegeta. And then not too long ago, you get the Brian Drummond Vegeta. It was a very disjointed situation. But there was one ad campaign that I really remember very well. And it was for the Cell, beginning of the Cell Saga. And it was like this guy running around this deserted city, basically talking about this maniacal bug that has descended upon them. But goes, but what's this? There are heroes coming from the four corners of the earth, just like bringing up, they are here to save us, just this moment. And then just ending, just like, he is coming. Just like that moment. And then Imperfect Cell, boom, Cell Saga coming soon. The ad campaign people from like Toonami in the UK, very well done. And then suddenly when DBZ ended, we suddenly got, oh, okay, here, have Dragon Ball and have Dragon Ball GT at the same time. Wait, what? Sorry? Are we getting both? Okay, cool, nice. We had the internet, we had the wonders of dial-up internet, and basically listening to the DBZ AMV of En Fuego 20 times over, because that was the hotness for a very long time back in 2002. There was one Vegeta AMV I really remember, and it was from Metallica's Die My Darling. Just like this, just hearing Vegeta go, don't utter a single word. Just this metal as hell AMV. And then there was, then on the other side, you get this like AMV of Blink-182's Adam song to this like, angsty Vegeta. And just like that moment when the scream drops right at the end of the song, it's when he had his arm broken by 18. You start off on Cartoon Network, and then when you get broadband internet, go nuts. Go and find all this different stuff. When you find the uncensored and the old like subbed versions of the Boo Saga, what you're missing out on and how uncut it is. And it really like just seeing that moment when like Trunks just blasts Frieza into pieces. We didn't get that, obviously. So seeing that actually uncut, wow, okay. That was like, I think the only time Super ever did that was basically, and it did it better than Resurrection F, was then Frieza just blows up the planet and you just see like, Videl and Pan, Whiteout, Dr. Briefs and Mrs. Briefs, boom, gone. You think, wow, okay, you suddenly went dark there. Okay, I thought this was a Sunday morning cartoon. In the UK, it was a very, very, I don't want to say too messy, but it was definitely something unexpected, I'd say.
Oh man, so my story is, so I'm going to date myself. It was September 1996. I was a freshman in high school. I had a friend who said, I just saw the coolest cartoon. You should check it out next week. And what I tuned into the following week was episode 2 of Funimation's original syndication broadcast dub of Dragon Ball Z, right there on American television there on the weekend. It was probably 6:30 a.m. on my local affiliate station. And it was just love at first sight. I kind of pieced together all the puzzle pieces that I had been seeing in all of my video game magazines. Like, oh, these are all the ads in the back. Oh, these are all the video games that I seem drawn to. I'm an anime fan. Got it.
It's exactly the same as with me. You know, you feel like, yeah, no, sure. My brother had introduced me to like things like Project Echo and like Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that. But, you know, that wasn't really meant for me. It was like all these really dark, Fatal Fury and Fatal Fury 2 and then the movie. You know,
I'm just picturing you watching Project Echo, having no knowledge of anime at all. That's great.
And then just suddenly Biko just suddenly doing this baseball gag. It'll be our very own Super Bowl. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great. But anyway, you need to watch Project Echo. But sorry, Mike, I digress. Continue.
So that was basically my story. I fell in love at first sight when I saw it there. I got my first internet connected computer. We did not have broadband yet in 1997. And then by January 1998, I was already working on my website, making links to other sites. I was following all the big fan sites of the day. I felt like there was nothing I could contribute. They already did everything. Everything that you needed to know about Dragon Ball was already online in 1998 because Dragon Ball was over. Dragon Ball GT ended. Was it that November? They were in 1997. The series was over. Everything was documented. All the episodes, all the CDs, everything you wanted to know was done. So I said, I'm just going to link to everyone else. I'm going to be the central resource to find the best sites. And then, you know, it was starting to really pick up over here in America there in from 96 to 98. That syndication broadcast, this is something that people who listen to me have probably heard me go on too much about recently, but I feel like there's a bit of revisionist history going on that Dragon Ball wasn't popular until it hit Cartoon Network there later in 1998. Dragon Ball got an hour-long syndication weekend morning time block for a second season a year before Pokemon was on television here in America. It was a smash success. We had merchandise in all the stores. Just a couple weeks ago, we were digging out all of our boxes. We were trying to clean Kanzenshuu headquarters East over here. We're digging out all of our old figures and fan subs, and I actually just nailed up to the wall the 4 figures I bought from the American version of the Super Battle Collection release. We had that all pre-Cartoon Network, and that's not to say that it didn't further explode in popularity when it did move to Cartoon Network in fall 1998, and then season 3 in fall 1999. Of course, it gained more popularity. Dragon Ball was huge, though. I mean, it was already a phenomenon. I was in high school. I moved around a lot. All of my friend groups were met through Dragon Ball and video games. I mean, it was a thing. Fan sub circuits in high school. I felt like we were, you know, sharing meth with each other in the hallways. It was really strange. Like, I got End of Ava. What do you got? Like, I got Android Saga. All right, let's do this. It was a great time, man.
I think I got the tail end of it in a way because I think I remember the first movie I got was my brother burning onto CD. Again, borrowing. That's the right word. The first Cooler movie. So movie 5. So movie 5 was the first DBZ movie I'd ever watched. And still to this day, I have never watched Second Coming, movie 10. Never watched it.
You're all right there.
Basically, Videl somehow dodging Broly is like Roshi somehow dodging Jiren. That's a disconnect. As much as I had a huge crush of Videl back in 2003, I'm sorry, I just could not buy that.
I don't know. There's a pretty good costume change fake out in that movie. So, I mean, that was my story. Do you want to hear like the abbreviated version of how it actually started in America? Because I've got the whole thing, man.
I would say absolutely. For those people who may not remember or just had no clue about it right at the beginning, so do give us like a Cliff Notes version of that if you can.
Sure. So there was a little company called Harmony Gold. You may know them as the draconian overlords preventing you from seeing Macross, the owners of Robotech. They tried with Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball here in America in the late 80s. They did 5 episodes of Dragon Ball, and they dubbed the first and third Dragon Ball movies into this kind of like pilot double feature that aired. They were trying to get pickup for it, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. And then years later, I mean, it felt like I say it felt like I wasn't into it yet, but 6 years at the time may well have been an eternity. A little company out of nowhere called Funimation forms in 1994 and somehow acquires a license to Dragon Ball. It really seemed at that time that some other anime company in America was going to get the license, but it turns out that Gen Fukunaga had an uncle somewhere who may or may not be Morishita, not entirely sure over there, but we think that's the connection. Funimation, this dinky nothing company with farms, I think they sold farmland to form the company, at least Daniel Kokenhauer there. Down in Texas, gets Dragon Ball. And so they start working on the original TV series. I've got a great feature that I just recently put up on a version of that movie they did in 1994 that they actually were using the Harmony Gold names for a while, and it seemed like they were hedging their bets on whether or not they were going to keep the Harmony Gold names or go with slightly more faithful names, which they ended up doing. And then 1995, Funimation releases, first movie, Curse of the Blood Rubies, and then they end up doing the first 13 episodes of the Dragon Ball TV series. And they cite for a variety of reasons, a variety of factors. They decided to change course. They were going to do a full 26 going through the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, but they changed their minds. And in 1996, they turn over to Dragon Ball Z. And we got 2 seasons of Dragon Ball Z airing in syndication. That's when they brought on Saban as their distributor. Saban, famous for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers already at this time. And so we get a first season of 26 episodes. It does really well. And we get a second season taking us through 53 episodes, plus a 3-part version of Dragon Ball Z Movie 3, The Tree of Might. That airs as its second season. It gets an hour-long block, as I mentioned before. This was huge. So we could look forward to getting up Saturday or Sunday morning and seeing an hour of Dragon Ball. And during this time in America, there was a lot of other stuff going on. There was a company over in Hawaii. I think they're still around, Nippon Golden Network. They actually aired the entirety of the Dragon Ball series and about the first 100 episodes of Dragon Ball Z subtitled. Its original Japanese language subtitles in English there. And those were very commonly traded on the fan sub circuit as fan subs, but it was actually a legit broadcast of the show. Then over here on cable, we had something called the International Channel. While Funimation's dub was going on, you could be getting your Nippon Golden Network fan sub, so to speak. The International Channel broadcast the entirety of the Dragon Ball Z, and then the next week into Dragon Ball GT in raw Japanese. I think it was Sunday evenings. And we had Telemundo over here broadcasting the Mexican, the Spanish dub of Dragon Ball Z. I mean, Dragon Ball was everywhere during this time. And then things changed in 1998. Saban went away. Funimation in kind of a tough pickle there. They end up going it alone, all on their own down there in Texas. They bring in an all new voice cast, all new musical composer. And they go from there. And that's where it's been ever since, in the hands of Funimation. And as you mentioned over there in the UK, you got an alternate dub kind of flipping back and forth, going back to the Ocean Studios cast. We had a lot of players over here, and that's not even mentioning things like Pioneer, who did the home video distribution, Ocean Studios, again, providing the voices. There were so many partners at the time. Everyone wanted a piece of the Dragon Ball puzzle, and eventually it turned into the success that it is today.
It's really interesting to know that, Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball wasn't just like, it doesn't just suddenly come out of nowhere in 1998. It had been there for a few years beforehand. So it's really good to know. So I really want to kind of like get your perspective on the continent to see, because I know that in France, in stuff like that, France and Japan, they have a strong animation connection. So I imagine they were pretty not far behind in terms of the dub. But in Poland and basically in the European area, how was it for you when you found Dragon Ball? Was it like when it just came out, or was it a while afterwards?
I think it was right around when it started, because as I mentioned on a few occasions before, like most of the anime we've got like Sailor Moon, like Yaiba, like stuff like this, like the Slayers, we got from either French or Italian dub, because they weren't very, German or English translations of anime that we could, Polonize, at least according to the translation stuff. So Dragon Ball here started in the year 1908, and we actually started with the regular Dragon Ball, so nobody was thinking, oh, Dragon Ball is a prequel to Z. No, we started with the OG Dragon Ball. I think we even had Dr. Slump before. I have, as I said, some memories of that being close to the same time slot. There was that television called RTL 7. Right now it has different name, and it doesn't have Dragon Ball anymore, but I think they went through the entire series 3 times over. In elementary school, I've been born in 1990, the year when, after communism in Poland ended, and we got so much stuff coming from the West, coming from East, first manga and anime stuff, this was relatively new, and I was a first generation in my country that could experience a lot of this stuff, right? One important thing that you need to remember is that many cartoons that were not, English, that were harder to translate, they didn't have dub, but things called lector, which essentially means that you have the foreign dub, in that case French, and you have a guy or a lady reading over it, So that's how we got Dragon Ball. And since our version of Dragon Ball was taken from the French, we have the French dub, which caused some of my colleagues to think that Dragon Ball is a joint effort of Japan and France, which it wasn't, by the way. But we as 8-year-old children, we believe that, and since there was a very anti-manga and anime mood from the adults, and church was we should Satan spawn, everything that's come from Japan is basically Satan's spawn. Some people were it's Japanese French, which supposedly was supposed to make it better and make adults more accepting. We had our little struggles with our parents and our teachers with liking that stuff. Later on, it became a guilty pleasure because some kids who quote unquote grew up from anime bullied those that still watched it, even though there was time when everybody watched Dragon Ball. And that's how was it through school, everybody wanted to be Son Go, because in our version Goku is called Son Go, so if you said Son Go, everybody knew who Son Go was. Later on, when people got older, they pretended that they didn't know what is it. Everyone knew the story, but once they got older, I don't remember the details. No, I don't know anything. And suddenly when Dragon Ball became a thing again, suddenly it seems that they remember everything perfectly when they become vintage and and not shameful. I pasted the famous intro that we got all the way from Raditz all the way to Boo, which is horrendous. It's infamous, and we mentioned it on a lot of occasions. So that's for Mike, but that's a trip. That was a trip.
As we said in last time's podcast with Nexus, by the way, if you haven't listened to that, it's a really fascinating look at the Dragon Ball fandom in the Americas. Basically, this theme is something that Haverock, on almost any occasion he can, will link to me in some kind of context. And it makes Raccoon out to be a main bad guy. Just somehow. The majority of it is basically Raccoon dunking on Gohan. It's nowhere near as catchy as the Canadian one of Dragon Ball, the ultimate journey. I mean, I dig that song. I actually kind of like it. It's fun.
All right, can we all agree that What's My Destiny Dragon Ball from Italy is the best international, change theme?
Also, as the Canadian one, we also had that in original Dragon Ball, so we had that.
And who can forget GT, the Ocean GT, which is Dan, but an extremely literal, trying to save the world. I dig it. Because, like, it's a desperate search all across the unit. Yeah, okay, I dig that. I actually like that. And it's funny because on the video that you can find it, my comment from like 8 years ago is right up at the top and I go like, Moscow, what are you doing here? Like, I go, I don't care what anyone says. I love this song. And I'm like, it's 8 years now. It's 2020. I still stand by that.
One of the funny things I wanted to mention is that I think like at some point, let me check it. I have my notes here. We actually had our lecture on the Japanese dub. So our first confusion at this time was, why does adult Goku sound like a kid? Because we didn't know about Nozawa. We didn't know about Nozawa at this point.
Oh yeah, of course. That's always the main quandary when any fan in the West hears Masaku Nozawa for the first time. I'm like, I wasn't like them. I actually found it amazing and really impressive, and that's why I'm known as Masako. That's why. Are you ever gonna meet Nozawa? And I'm like, no. I would never foist myself upon that gem. Never. Ever, ever. Like, I would never go like, oh, by the way, I also voice Goku. I'm like, okay, no, I would never do that. I will just gladly listen to her do a Kamehameha in person and just listen to her talk. That's all I want to do. That's
why you have me. Oh, by the way, Miss Nozawa, this guy is afraid to admit that he also voices.
Tab is one of those people who will he'll be quietly in the room with you. He'll just observe and then just come in with a zinger and then retreat away again. Like, he picks his moments, but they're always effective. They always get a good reaction. And then actually encourage me to come out of my shell. And then afterwards, when we head back, and he goes like, well, mate, I told you so. But going back to our main topic, actually, the one story I really remember, and it's one of my favorite videos on the subject, is the Portuguese dub. I love how defiant the producers at Seek were about that dub. Mike, are you familiar with the Portuguese dub at all?
I've seen pieces of it, but absolutely feel free to refresh my memory here.
The Portuguese dub from the mainland of Portugal is like, we don't really care about the source material. We like this show. We're just going to throw in all of our in-jokes from the channel.
Oh, that's right. Is there also like random robot voices in there too?
Captain Gnu sounds like someone from,
an operetta.
Mamma mia, no!
Frieza just comes up, almost like turns to the camera and says, by the way, kids, if you've been very good boys, you may watch to the end of the episode, if it's past your bedtime. You know, the bit where you see Yakon for the first time, Goku goes like, oh my goodness, it's Miss Portugal 1997. I applaud your bravado here. You get your times where you have censorship and stuff like that, and that's all very well and good, and it's a shame to see it. But when you basically have a network that's just going to go, we're going to just make this like we made it ourselves, and to hell with Japan about that. Yeah, it's just amazing. And how the fact it got me to actually talk to Joao Loi, who is the Japanese Vegetto, or who was for the very longest time up until the Broly movie. That was surreal. Actually, suddenly seeing my metrics in Portugal double overnight.
Portuguese Vegeta, not Japanese Vegeta.
Sorry about that. Okay, but incidentally, I did get to meet Ryo Horikawa at AkumaCon, wearing a turtleneck. It was quite cold. It was January, but he looked like a proper thespian. And then he just burst out into song singing Senseiya. I remember I was introducing myself. I was like, hi guys, I'm VegettoEX from Dragon Ball Z Bridge Team 4-Star. He's in the corner, his arms crossed, just like sly grin, nodding his head. I'm like, how much does he know? Hopefully he knows nothing.
Everything. He knows everything.
Just all these different associations and how these different countries react to Dragon Ball is just so... I find it really interesting. I love making videos about all these different topics. And again, Mike, it's really nice to hear all these different perspectives. And I think this has actually really made this topic really flow quite nicely and actually made it so my initial prediction that this would be shorter than the mini topic, thankfully they've not come true. So again, I would say in the comments below or in a review if you can rate this episode, let us know where you come from and how Dragon Ball was introduced in your countries. So with that, let's bring down the mood. Mike, has there been anything that you've been catching up with Dragon Ball recently? Have you been keeping up with the manga and, of course, the very confused child that is Super Dragon Ball Heroes?
Yes, I read everything. I watch everything. I consume everything. I don't necessarily have thoughts on everything. I think, if you're a listener of Kanzenshuu's podcast, I really like to approach things as a complete whole. Arcs as a whole is the way I like to review things. The Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc has been going for a while now. I kind of expected it to be over. So we haven't had a chance to review it yet, but I'm very much excited to do so because it's my favorite thing that there's been in quite some time. Probably take a little bit of slack for this, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the Broly film. And the Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc is kind of everything that I'm looking for in a Dragon Ball story. It's got the character beats that I'm looking for. I love the setting. I'm enjoying some of the extra characters there. I'm just a real big fan of the Galactic Patrol, everything. Going back to Sachi-chan and Gia from Toriyama and Katsura there. The Galactic Patrol is one of my big documentation projects right now, so I'm very, very much invested in it. So I think I am the biased when it comes to this arc here. I think that's coloring my view on it a little bit. I'm not afraid to admit that, but I think that's kind of where I fall. And Heroes is what it is. It's been going for over a decade at this point. The promotional anime is literally action figures slamming into each other with no animation. I mean, it just is what it is. How can you even have thoughts on that? It's kind of how I feel.
I just feel like with Kumba, they were missing a trick there. If they just made that a beefed up possessed Raditz, that would have been so much more engaging, but Raditz is not used in anything. It's like your association with the Dead Zone, Mike. I'm anything to do with Raditz. Like, seriously. Anything to do, that's why I do Dragon Ball R&R. That's why I do it. To give that boy some recognition. I will say that Lags in Super Dragon Ball Heroes is probably one of the most interesting characters in that franchise, because crystal powers. She has a crystal dragon. Can you imagine if Super Dragon Ball Heroes basically got a crystal dragon versus Goku Super Saiyan 3 Dragon Fist? Crystal Dragon, Super Dragon Fist. Two mystical key-based dragons punching each other, connecting. That would sell a lot of things, but no, Hearts is just going like, no, you're too good. You almost killed Goku. Go to Universe 3. So let me carry on with me being Dio and stuff like that.
Takehito Koyasu is one of the holdouts we've had for the longest time, not having a role in Dragon Ball. And you know what? If it's got to be Hearts, so be it. We finally have Koyasu.
Hearts' character, he was so bland, but when he was about to die, he went like, my motive was to basically take down Zeno. And I'm like, he is a menace. And you feel like, why didn't you say that earlier? We could have gotten behind that. We would have almost had a connection with Thanos. We'd have got, wait a minute, this guy has a point. Zeno's a jerk. Like, seriously. Anarchic and very, very right for Dragon Ball. It fits perfectly with the likes of Toribot, who's even higher than Zeno. Hearts, if he'd have said his motivation earlier, despite all the crystals and the universal conflict things with all these weird things, and Kami Oren, who's basically a toothpaste baby in some way, this could have been done better, but oh well.
Again, remember, it exists to sell you cards that you can't buy in an arcade game that you can't play.
I think a lot of people, they only know Super Dragon Ball Heroes for seeing that one clip on YouTube of Trunks going Super Saiyan 3.
Right.
And that's it. That's the one thing they remember from back in 2010. The Super Dragon Ball Heroes is its own thing. I don't really talk about it on the channel anymore because it just, like, I'm so jaded by it. But, Harvey, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was about to say that we have now Dr. W. I wonder who he is. We have no idea.
Yes, Dr. W. And everyone's going like, who is it, guys? This is a brand new character. No, it's not. It's Dr. Wheelo. It's Dr. Wheelo with his body. No, this isn't a mystery. It's a doctor. It's a very good-looking character, and it's like, oh, hey, cool, you're doing a Dr. Light impression. Now, Haverock and I, we're looking back through GT a lot, and we appreciate GT more and more as we get older, but they had a weird fascination for mad, maniacal doctors. Like, you get Dr. Mew, you got Dr. Lightshi in a way with Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans, you got Dr. Shiro coming back in. Enough of the doctors, guys. You're right, Mike. Super Dragon Ball Heroes, don't take it seriously. But I think a lot of people right now, because it's the only animated thing that we have right now, it's something that we're clinging on to. What it really does bring to mind, especially after seeing Shintani and crew doing a great job in helping bring Dragon Ball into the modern age with the Broly movie. You then look at Super Dragon Ball Heroes and what Tadayoshi Yamamura is now doing willingly admitting that he doesn't watch other anime, you feel like, wow, I'm seeing the same angle many, many times over again. That slow, high-angle pan up of a brand new character.
That got punched, Vegeta holding his arm. Yeah, I know. We've seen them all.
Yeah, exactly. It really hammers it home in a way, and it just feels like, yeah, okay.
Dragon Ball is, and forever will be, and was from the start, pencil and paper. And I think you really, if you haven't, you really owe it to yourself. Go back and read the original Dragon Ball manga, chapter 1 to chapter 519, as a complete product, to see what Toriyama came up with, flying by the seat of his pants week to week, delivering he didn't even do storyboards. He delivered the final product, late, very, very consistently. To see what he could do in that medium, I think that's really, really important to your fandom. And if you have done that, well, maybe you haven't read Dr. Slump, and I think you owe it to yourself to go back and do that, because you want to talk about spy robots, you want to talk about a Majin villain, you want to talk about evil scientists creating androids and cyborgs. That's all from Dr. Slump. Like, Toriyama is just repeating himself in every product over and over. Dragon Ball is a story of a boy and a girl. There are also, you mentioned earlier, Tongpu and Dragon Boy, two prototypes leading up to Dragon Ball, a story about a boy and a girl. You look at things that came after that. I love his one-shot Kintoki. It's a story about a boy and a girl. Kajika is not necessarily about a boy and a girl, and it kind of is a little bit. You get a little group in there as well. It's more about a fox boy and a spirit. But just, you really owe it to yourself. Check out Toriyama's other works, and none of them are going to be at the grand scale of Dragon Ball, but I think you will learn new things about Dragon Ball and appreciate it in new ways, if not different ways, by doing that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way of putting it, and it's never been easier to get to see the Dragon Ball manga, because you got Viz's Shonen Jump service online.
It's $2 a month. Read all of Dragon Ball. Read all of Dr. Slump. Jocko's on there. I mean, just go hog wild.
Yeah, exactly. And you can keep up with Super. And this isn't sponsored, by the way. It's just that's how I read the Super manga for the reviews and stuff like that. And heck, like the box sets of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z's manga, they are dirt cheap for what you get. I've been able to get all of them, again, in one go, for about maybe just over 100 quid. So maybe about $120 for all 42 volumes in 2 collector's cases. You feel like that's a good deal. Have at it. And I bet when Dragon Ball Super's manga ends, there'll be a set for that too.
I'm a fan of other anime. I'm a fan of other manga. There is something about Toriyama, and specifically Dragon Ball, that era, which is a long era, spanning a decade, but the way he doesn't do shading, like it's either black or it's white on the page. Everything is so clean. His compositions, I'm not an artist. I really struggle reading a lot of other stuff, even One Piece. I love Oda. I love his writing style. I just think it's too busy on the page. I was such a big fan of the Trigun television series. I tried reading the Trigun manga. I found it incomprehensible. There's something about the way that Toriyama draws and composes things on the page. It flows. It makes sense. It's logical. It just you're not even reading. You're just kind of like absorbing the page through all of your senses, even smell, because the books smell. And especially if you're in my basement and you're looking at magazines from the 1980s, you get a really distinct smell to it down here.
Oh, yes, of course. The classic, 70s, 80s musty textbook smell. Just that period. It's
like a fine wine. Just a really dark, earthy red wine with hint of musk.
Nostalgic dust. That's the way I say it. It's just like, that takes me back to school in a way. Yep.
Man. So I don't know. That's my point. That's my recommendation. Go back and read all the Dragon Ball manga, read all of Dr. Slump, read everything else you can. I wish Viz would release more. I know Carlson over there, do they do the German releases? There's some other companies over there have released things like Kajika, I think, is out over there. I'm pining for a legitimate release of Kajika over here. I know we've got Sandland over here in America, Kawa or Koa, however you're reading the kana there. That's been released. Jocko, you have to read Jocko. I know a lot of Dragon Ball fans know it exists and that, oh yeah, he's in Super. Oh my God, read Jocko the Galactic Patrolman. It is independent of the fact that it is an actual prequel, not like Dragon Ball is a non-prequel to Z. Jocko is a true prequel to Dragon Ball. It's like the epitome of Toriyama. It's that dry humor. There's this scene, I think it's in chapter 5 of Jocko. This is like, oh, this is Toriyama humor. And it's not even funny. It's just Jocko looks and he's like, I know what you are. You're a girl and a dog. And they're like, yeah. It's not even funny, but I find that so hysterical. Like, that's just Toriyama's writing style. It's so dry, and it's not random for randomness' sake. I don't know. Go read Jocko. Please read Jocko.
No, I made sure when I found it on Amazon to get a copy. So I do plan to sit down and read it now that we recently got a puppy. So when I'm like on guarding duty, so I'll just catch up on Jocko while I'm just making sure puppy doesn't try to chew chair legs or anything like that. But yeah, so I think we're pretty much good to like be wrapping things up for today's episode. Once again, Mike, I really thank you for joining us today. It's been really insightful, as well as just really kind of immersing ourselves in Dragon Ball.
It's been far too long. I always enjoy our chats, and I would love to chat more, whether that's your show, my show. I just love talking Dragon Ball. I love talking history. I love sharing the things that I've learned in collaboration with my other friends, my comrades, my colleagues at Kanzenshuu. Can I talk about Kanzenshuu just real briefly here?
Well, basically, this is the time and place as we're signing off, basically, for you to plug away. So perfect.
I would love to. So Kanzenshuu is a website. I'm not sure if the kids today know what websites are. It's not, the way I phrase it is Kanzenshuu is not a podcast. Kanzenshuu is not a forum. Kanzenshuu is not a wiki. It is a website that has, or will soon have, all of those things. It dates back, like you mentioned, to I started a little links page in January 1998, and I have made some very, very important and dear friends along the way. What you see now when you go to Kanzenshuu.com is multiple decades of hard work, dedication, and love from a small group of friends who do it because we love doing what we do. Kanzenshuu is not our job. No one is paid to work on Kanzenshuu. No one makes any money from Kanzenshuu. We do it because we love Dragon Ball and we love what Toriyama has made. We don't always agree with everything that has been made. We don't necessarily like everything that has been made, but we are extremely invested in sharing everything that we know to the best of our ability as professionally as possible. So I would love, if you've never heard of Kanzenshuu, you don't know where to begin, just go to that website, just start clicking around. We have guides. You can listen to the podcast. You can join on the forum and chat with other people. It is, at this point, it really has become my life's work, and I'm so proud to work with the friends that I do on that, and we're looking to expand. You mentioned, I do want to make a clear delineation. Wikia is a very specific thing owned by the Fandom website corporation. We are making a wiki, it's just a type of technology, and it's going to be a part of the website. We just want to document everything because we have everything. We have the ability to do so. And I'm not going to be here forever. My intent is to keep working as long as I live. But we're really looking to build something that will outlast our own lifetimes. That's Kanzenshuu.
Here up on the lookout, we hope to really do our bit there, as well as what we've been doing on the VegettoEX channel. I mean, Havelock and I can certainly attest to that. We really are trying to do our bit to present it in a more kind of like laid back situation, but it just means with all these different outlets for all of this information, it means there's something for everyone at whatever kind of approach they wish to take. So it's always good to have options, certainly.
And on the other hand, you always want to use, trustworthy sources, which Kanzenshuu is, definitely.
Absolutely. And that's not me just saying that because one of the head honchos is here. That's me actually saying it genuinely. But yeah, no, once again, Mike, thank you for joining us here today. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And if you are enjoying what you have heard, then you can either rate and review on your respective podcasting platforms, or you can basically become a caretaker on the lookout. Mr. Popo will give you all the information that you need. Just don't break his stuff by going to marsico.cc/lookout, and you'll be able to contribute in your own simple way. Once again, thank you all so much for listening, and until the next time, everyone, we do hope you're safe out there, and we hope to hear you and see from you again. Ta-ra!